for the 8th year in a row to make this introduction. And I sort of thought, I remember when I was about 10 or 11 years old, my dad told me, "You're not going to believe how fast life moves," when I said life doesn't move fast enough. Well, it's amazing because many of you were here 8 years ago when there was a new governor and we had the first introduction, and boy, have things changed in an 8-year period. We are very, very fortunate to have this governor, to work with this governor. I think in our own case at Blue Cross, we have 1,500 more employees today than 8 years ago. And that story is replicated time after time after time from Detroit to Grand Rapids to the Upper Peninsula. And it's been a great pleasure. I want to congratulate again, what a great conference. Ray Talang, Ray, great job, thank you. Steve Polk, the chair of the board. These are tough jobs. Sandy and the staff have done a great job, and every year it gets better and better, so thanks for your hard work. Thank you. So we're at a point that I think it's exciting and somewhat a bummer that I get to do this for the last time. But it is my pleasure to introduce the governor of the great state of Michigan, Rick Snyder. Thanks, Governor. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Please be seated. Well, this is exciting. It's always exciting to give this speech. This is a special one for me, being the last one, but I want to start by thanking the Chamber, Sandy, the whole team. Dan was mentioning the great leadership here. It was special yesterday when I had the opportunity to have this become the Relentless Positive Action Conference, so thank you for doing that, because it is critically important. And it's wonderful. You can see I've given enough speeches. My family usually gave up on me. They actually came today, a number of them, so it's great to have the First Lady and a couple of the kids and my sister. Thank you. So no pressure to give a good speech today. But what I wanted to do was sort of sum many of these things up and spend most of the time talking about our future. If you go back and look at 2010, Sue and I went off to something called New Governor School. And during a break in the meetings, on my chair was an envelope. I watched the other new governors open their envelope and watched their expressions. Some smiled, some grimaced. I went and opened mine. It was from Moody Analytics. It was a forecast for the future of your state. And to make sure you didn't mess up, in reverse colorization, in the upper left-hand corner, was a forecast of how you do of the 50 states for job growth between 2009 and 2014. You know what my number was? It's 50. I still have that on the corkboard in my office, so I can never forget it. That's how we were expected to do, folks, be 50 out of 50. When we looked at some other metrics, and you know I'm a proud nerd, so we did all kinds of stats. For one thing, for veterans, we actually came in 53rd. Yes, it's true. American Samoa actually was doing better than Michigan. But the question is, what do you do? And the campaign situation was, it wasn't about fixing Michigan, it was about reinventing Michigan. And to do it with relentless positive action. No blame, no credit. What's the problem? What's the solution? And have us all work together to make a better place. So how have we done? And I'm not going to go through tons of numbers, but I do want to put in perspective that 50 I looked at. So in the last 7 years, we've created over 540,000 private sector jobs. That ranks us number 1 in the Great Lakes states and number 6 in the nation. In terms of per capita income, number 1 in the Great Lakes states, number 6 in the nation. In terms of manufacturing job creation, number 1 in the nation. In terms of net inbound bachelor's degrees for the Great Lakes states after being at the bottom for decades, number 1 in the Great Lakes states. Look at the resurgence of Detroit. the most challenged urban area in the last 50 years in our country, now known as the comeback city. We should be proud. We've gotten a lot done. We've gone through this comeback. I called us the comeback state for many years. I've actually told people that should stop. We're back. We're now a top 10 state again. We still have many challenges. I don't want to make it sound like everything's great. We still have a lot of things in education. We have urban areas. We have small communities that still need help. We have people that need help. But the progress has been tremendous, and hopefully you can feel it. You can see it. And the people you meet on the street, the people you talk to. So what are we supposed to do now? We have a choice to make when you're back. You can choose to continue to lead, or you can choose to be led. And what do I mean by that? It takes exceptional effort to lead. It doesn't just happen. You have to be conscious about it. You have to set a direction. You have to have a vision. You have to have fire and focus. If you don't, physics happens. You return to the norm. You go back. And I don't want to see us go back to being an average state. That's not who we are. And I can tell you, for the few months I have still as governor, we are going to lead. In January, I'm going to be another Michigan citizen. And I can tell you my vote today is to lead. The question that this group needs to decide, and all Michiganders, is that how we're going to vote? Is that what we're committed to do? Is to lead versus being led? I'm going to share 5 simple points that I believe are critical to Michigan's future. These are the points you should be asking the people that are asking for the opportunity to lead our state. Number 1, where's our economy going? What's the future direction of not just the Michigan economy, but our world? And how can we be a leader in doing that? We're very fortunate. We have one of the key pillars that's going to be central to that. That's mobility. The convergence of the IT industry and the automotive industry for autonomous and connected vehicles, for smart cities. What an opportunity. We are the world's leader today. We need to maintain that leadership. We need to grow that leadership. And when I say grow, it's not at the expense of someplace else. It shouldn't be a versus attitude. It's about being the best partner in the world. It's about reaching out and building a network of people around the world, places around the world to say, we're at the epicenter of it, and how can we help them be better while we're being better ourselves? That's RPA. I just did a trade mission to Europe. I mentioned this yesterday. We signed an agreement with Styria, a state in Austria, but we signed 2 other agreements on mobility. They were with the country of the UK and the country of the Netherlands. Think about that. We have 2 of the most prominent countries in the world selecting Michigan to be a partner. They selected a state. That's something special. Let's build on that. So we have to lead this new economy. We have to be thoughtful about all this. Now, how do you do that? The greatest asset of the state, and we have some fabulous natural assets, the Great Lakes and things like that, are the people of the state. The key is talent. It's no longer a question in Michigan, do you have a job? The question is, how do you get the skills to take that great, well-paying position? And the thing I will add, I've talked about that for a long time, is not just that first position, but how are you prepared for lifelong learning? How are you prepared to understand that you may do something for 10 years in a field, and that field may change dramatically, and now you're going to be retrained for what comes next? I did an interview yesterday with some press people, and they brought a photographer because they were trying to get an understanding of what was I talking about. And I looked at that photographer, and he was great. He jumped right in it. He was with me. I said, remember flash bulbs in film? And he laughed. And he goes, Governor, I've changed 3 or 4 times. It's not just been one change. What system for lifelong learning do we have today in this country, in this world? The people that figure out the best way to do this, to build on the foundation that we've already done, are going to have a competitive economic advantage in this world. We are a leader in doing that today, in career pathways, and career tech education, and wonderful world-class universities. But we can't take it for granted. And we have to recognize the structures of the last 200 years are going to keep going, but we need to modify how they operate and interact with one another. We need a much more seamless system where you have K-12 with community colleges, with higher ed, with employers, all talking to one another, all communicating, all making sure we avoid disconnects and giving people an opportunity, not just when they're 18 to 22, but from 14 to 70 or 80. That's the talent network that we're going to build. That's what the Marshall Plan for Talent's all about. And I appreciate my legislative partners for working hard and hopefully getting that done in the next week or so. So talent. The third thing is infrastructure. We underinvested in infrastructure, not just in Michigan, but in this country for decades. When you have a problem that's been there for decades, it's not a light switch. It doesn't fix overnight. But we are getting our act together. We are making commitments to invest more in dollar resources. We simply need to invest more. We've got a big package that's being implemented now to help our roads. We're up 30 to 40% more road dollars right now than we were just a few years ago. And there's more coming. But we have to be vigilant. We can't take for granted that's going to be good enough by itself. It won't be. Because it's not just about how much you invest, but you have to invest smarter. And we are leading that charge. We're doing something really exciting. A nerd like me can get into it, but I don't know about many. It's called integrated asset management. So if you have insomnia, I'll send you the paper. But it's the concept of having that road in front of your street. The road in front of your house or where you work. How many times have you seen it torn up for road work, and then it gets torn up for water and sewer, then for gas and electric, then for fiber, and it gets torn up multiple times? Why don't we do that work once and save all the money of tearing up that road 3 or 4 times or more? We actually finished a year-long pilot in the state of Michigan. We got the east side working with the west side. They mapped almost 25,000 miles of roads, 14,000 miles of water and sewer, 6,000 or 5,000 bridges, 4,000 culverts, all that stuff, and that was only in 158 communities in our state. It's a daunting task, but if you do it once, you do it right, you got it done, and you can start doing the planning. We looked for best practice in the entire country to say, where can we find how to do this right? And you know where we ended up? London, England. But we're doing it in Michigan. So it's about more but smarter. We need to keep that up. The fourth thing, fiscal responsibility. One of the things you should really be listening to the candidates for is if they get up and start with to say, I'm going to cut taxes. Or they get up and start with, I'm going to raise taxes and I want to spend more. You should be concerned. The question isn't, are you going to do this or that, but why? For what purpose? Is it going to be a worthwhile return? You work hard to earn your dollars. I've always believed I have to be an important steward of that. I'm willing to ask for dollars. I have asked you for dollars. But it needed to be to show you it's a good investment, that it makes a positive difference in your life more than other choices you may have. It's about fiscal responsibility, folks. It's not about more or less. Think about it. In Michigan, we're almost to the edge of getting 8 budgets done 3 months ahead of schedule, no monkey business, structurally sound. How many jurisdictions in this country can say that? I can tell you that number is, I don't know of anyone else other than us that does it 3 months ahead. But more important than that is we're paying down our long-term debts. We learned we have a mortgage payment to make, and we've been doing that. And that mortgage payment, in our case, are state employees and our public school employees. And I can tell you, many of you have heard me say this, if you want a really cool job in Michigan, you should run for governor in 2038. I'm going to be way too old and term limited. I don't have options here. You do. 2038, and the reason I picked that year is that's when those obligations will be paid off. You know what happens when it's paid off? It frees up cash flow of about $1 billion a year at the state level. And in our schools, it frees up cash flow of probably $1.5 billion to $2 billion a year that then we can make smart investment decisions with. Whether to invest more in something like infrastructure and education, or to reduce taxes, or to do both. But that's because we would have earned it. The other message I always put out with this is, who are we responsible to? I can tell you, you've heard me say this before, I work for each and every one of you. You hired me to do this job, but I also believe I work for some other people. The kids that haven't been born yet. Those future Michiganders. And think, where in our political world do we hear that very often? People are focused on their 2 years, their 4 years, their 8 years. I would contend that's not the most responsible answer. We should be looking at 30 years, 50 years. That's the horizon we should operate under. Because don't we have an obligation to help the people that haven't been born yet? And to say, shouldn't we create a better state today and hand it off where you know it's going to be better for those people in the future and not put them in a bigger hole than when we got it? We've done that in Michigan. Each and every one of you should be really proud of that. And I'm talking by the context of billions of dollars. So let's not mess that payment schedule up. We're just like a family. When we sit there and do our budget, our first check should be our mortgage payment. So fiscal responsibility is critically important. Now the last one is civility. Back to relentless positive action. The greatest threat to our country today is not North Korea. It's not Iran. They are very serious threats. They should never be minimized. Our greatest threat is us. Think about that. We live in the greatest country in the world. We should be really proud of that. But just like Michigan found the lost decade, now you're finding us becoming content, complacent, fighting with one another, believing we're entitled to something, spending time not solving problems, but finding problems with somebody else. You cannot be long-term the greatest country in the world if you can't get along with yourself. That should be one of the most obvious points to anyone. But yet we continue to do it. It's got to stop at some point. And what I would contend to you, it won't be a light switch. People have themselves wound up enough where that's how they view life now. But we need role models. We need people that are willing to be the role model for saying there's a better path, a different way to do it. And that's one thing I'm proud of. It's for the last 8 years, I've not criticized another person because that's not what this job is about. It's about results for you, for every Michigander, and for those that aren't even born yet. We need to stand up and be louder and prouder about that. If you have someone running for office and they get up and start talking about fighting, you should have alarm bells going off. Fighting had a role, and many of you have heard me say this. It belonged on the beaches of Normandy, not the beaches of Lake Michigan, Lake Huron, Lake Superior, or Lake Erie. It's about how we show results together. That's an incredible opportunity. That's why we've had the success we've had over these last few years. We need to keep that up. Because, again, let me go back to where I started. We have an opportunity to lead. We've been leading. And isn't it much better to know where you're going, to know you're going to face challenges that you may not even have the answer to, but to know you can do it with people you care about, and to do it in a way you have insight to say you can try to help other people and bring them along with you on this journey, rather than have someone else dictate the terms to you. So that's what I've been proud of over these last 8 years. And what I look forward to as a Michigan citizen is that all of us are going to vote to lead. To lead by saying no blame, no credit, no calling some other person out, but saying, what's the problem? What's the solution? And how do you pursue those things relentlessly? Because I'll tell you, as I said yesterday, even when you disagree with someone, almost every case you can find common ground with respect to 20% of the issue, 50% of the issue, 80% of the issue. Instead of continuing to fight and argue and see nothing happen, do that 20%, do that 50%, do that 80%, because that's how you earn trust. And when you come back around again to say, after you've done that, that you've not just talked about it, but you've actually done something to improve lives, it's that much easier to say, now that we still had 20% we disagreed over, we can solve 10% of that. We can solve 20% of that. And do that cycle relentlessly. Isn't that a better answer than seeing nothing happen and people just be disagreeable, dislike to hate? So we've got to stop the way we operate in this country today in the political world. It won't be overnight, but it can start right here, with civility, with respect, and with problem solving. So I'm proud to have been your governor. This has been an incredible opportunity to just go help people. Has it been perfect? No. We've had some bad things happen on my watch. But did we try to go out and respond to make everything better that we could? And the commitment I said originally when I was running were two things. One, did I do what I said I was going to do? And secondly, did we build a long-term foundation for success that never had anything to do with Rick Snyder ever being governor? Because it's not about a person. It's about a big family. To say, I believe we have a strong foundation today. Is it a perfect foundation? No. But ask yourselves in your heart, did you ever imagine our foundation would be as strong today as it was in 2009 or 10 when you looked at where you thought we could end up? I hope we've exceeded expectations. That's that leadership thing. We can't stop now. And let's go for the next 4 years in the same path, the next 8 years, the next 12 years, 16 years, 20 years, 50 years. That's when the best things in life happen. It's not in those early days, but as you stay a consistent, solid path of continuous improvement. So thank you for the opportunity to have one last speech with you. You're likely not to get a nerd up here again for a long time, or someone that'll admit it. But it's great to be with you. I love this state. I know you do too. Let's keep making it better. Thank you.
Joining the governor on stage, please welcome back the President and Chief Executive Officer for the Detroit Regional Chamber, Sandy Baruah.
Thanks, baby. Thank you.
I'm a little emotional.
So am I.
I feel like Devin Skillian interviewing John Boehner. We're both a little emotional, and maybe we should do one Bloody Mary?
I saw that. That would be next year.
Listen, before we begin, I want to make a special acknowledgement. We obviously spent a lot of time with the governor, talking to the governor. recognizing the governor for all he has done for the state, your public service. We don't spend nearly enough time recognizing the people who make that happen and the people who are actually serving along with the governor but don't get the attention that they often deserve. And I want to recognize Sue. Is Sue here?
Right there.
In the audience there. Sue, thank you for your public service. And your entire family. I mean, this was, obviously it's not just you, it's your entire family that has been serving these now 7.5 years.
No, we have Kelsey and Zach and my sister Sherry with us too. So we got the extended family here, and it's great.
No, it's great. No, they should be here. Last year they have really great seating.
Yeah.
So, I feel a little bit like I'm conducting an exit interview. It's like we hired you 7 years ago, you've done a really great job for us, and you've kind of said, it's time for me to go on, and I feel like I should be saying, listen, what can we do to make you stay? Can we pay you more money?
Well, it's been a high-paid job to begin with, so yeah.
So, as we were chatting backstage a little bit, Governor, I've gotten to know you fairly well, I think, over these last almost 8 years. You were running for governor when I moved to this state, and I'm proud to say that the Detroit Regional Chamber was the first business organization to endorse you. And I think you weren't at 2% in the polls. I think you had reached about 4%.
Well, you made the margin of error club.
Yeah.
Because that's when, as people know, I was so low in the polls, people used to come up to me and say, did you know if you apply the margin of error, you'd be a negative number? I've always thanked people for that kind comment, but you were, and that, I call my early supporters the margin of error club.
No place to go but up then,
Yeah.
right? So what I want to do is talk to you not about, listen, you've done a great job talking about how you want to sprint to the finish. You've made it really clear what your agenda is for your last few months in office. You did a great job on this stage kind of talking about what you're proud of. I want to talk to you about kind of the personal side of being governor. And so I'm going to start with actually this conference. So when I first met you, and we were talking about the Mackinac Policy Conference, I think it's safe to say you were not a fan of the Mackinac Policy Conference.
That's a correct statement.
So I think it's a fair statement to say that your opinion of that has evolved over time. Talk to us about that. Why is that? What is it about?
Because things get done. Not always right at the conference, but you have a clear agenda. We have the pillars. We have action happening. We have follow-up. We have metrics to measure things, and it's true. I was really blunt with Sandy when he first came back and I was running. I said, I came for a couple years and I stopped coming because I said all people did was talk. And I didn't come up here to go do a 2-day cocktail party. There's important things to be done, and I said if there's real substance going on, like I said, I don't like nice meetings. You get stuff done, and you have, and you should be complimented. And the people that have consistently come to this over the last few years should be complimented. There's achievable, measurable outcomes that have made Michigan better.
Well, and we appreciate you always helping and contributing to the to-do list that we do every year. In fact, we need to chat afterwards to figure out what this year's to-do list is going to be. So, your first job in public service was governor of one of the largest states in the nation. It's not a bad way to break into an industry.
No. Well, one of the things, I got a lot of questions about that because people would kind of say you're just a CEO type and stuff like that, and I still get that. People do the bean counter thing and all this kind of stuff, but I was really fortunate because it's not about you, it's about building a team. I mean, as leader of the team, you have to set the vision, you have to be a good coach, you got to do follow-up. But very fortunately, we did a great blend of both people that had lots of experience in government and people that didn't. And I always described it, the other kind of 2 modules we had, or modes, was we had been there and done that people. We were very fortunate. I had some fabulous people that had no reason to rationally work in the administration because they could do anything they wanted and had been highly successful. And then we had a lot of young people that, again, were going to take the hill. They were very bright, very dedicated, and again, when you mix those people together, it causes incredible things to happen. And so one of the things I'm really looking forward to is 10 years from now, an alumni reunion of all the people that worked in the administration. I really am, because we're going to see so many future leaders of our state, and what they are going to accomplish is absolutely incredible. Because again, it's not about me, it's how do you be a role model, how do you be a mentor, and how do you develop a attitude and a system of success.
So what was your biggest surprise walking into elected office? Having never been into elected office before, what was your biggest surprise walking into that industry?
Yeah, it's really the attention on everything you do. The funny part is I had some experience in the private sector where I thought I was kind of a hot shot. I did interviews, I did some TV stuff and things like that. I started counting, and it's like, okay, if I counted, it's like you do 2 or 3 a month. Well, to give you some idea of scope and scale for interviews, I've done more than an interview every calendar day. I'm upwards of getting close to 3,000 interviews in my time as governor. And it's not just the interviews, it's the fact that if you sneeze wrong, someone's there with a camera, or you go out to eat and they want to video me eating a hamburger for some reason. I've never found the great attraction of that.
It might be the proprietor. It might be the proprietor of the institution where you're eating at. It might be.
No, it's just somebody sitting in the restaurant. Oh. So it's one of those things that's really amazing, but you always take that carefully because people care about what you're doing, and so again, that's where it's important to show respect to everyone.
So last night we had this really special opportunity to have a little cocktail party with Peggy Noonan at the official island governor's residence, and Peggy was just so blown away by the view that you have from your governor's residence up there. So my question is, take all the governing aside for a minute. What did you enjoy most about being governor? Not about the work, but just, being governor of a great state like Michigan. What did you enjoy most about it?
Yeah, a lot of it is the honor of how people react and how excited they can be. One of the things I really do enjoy, and I sometimes drive our team nuts, is the school tours. If I'm in a meeting in my Capitol office and I hear a school tour, I'll actually stop the meeting quite often and go out to see them. Because they have no political baggage. I mean, they're 4th graders, most of them.
Let's hope not.
But you go, yeah, well, I've had a few planted questions from adults with the 4th graders, but beyond that, you go out and these kids are just fired up to meet the governor. And it's really cool just to go do a picture with them. And it's spending those extra few moments. It makes your heart feel good. And then you see further opportunities. It's like one quick story I'll share with you, because this just renewed my faith and how awesome the state is. And you know I'm a huge FIRST robotics guy. Most people know that. So I went to this company in the Port Huron area, and the companies now know if they get their FIRST robotics teams that they sponsor to come to the company, they got a better hook of getting the governor to show up. So they had the team there, but then they had hired these kids as interns. They had 4 of the kids as interns, and they said, Governor, the owner said, will you go to them in their workstations and talk about the work they're doing? So I go up to this one young man, 14 years old, and he goes, Governor, let me show you the computer simulation software I wrote. This is in the Port Huron area. No special schools, just great solid schools, good people, but no special training. That he wrote this computer simulation software, and the owner comes over and he goes, it won us a $250,000 job. And I go to the next young person, and I said, so what are you doing? He apologizes to me because he doesn't do computer simulation software. He goes, I wrote the vision system software, and here's the infrared camera and the other camera. And so what it showed me is we as adults, this is why I get fired up about the Marshall Plan. We create these silos to sort of say, we can't have a 14-year-old kid learning simulation software. That has to wait until they go to college or something. That's nuts. Let's get out of the way. Let's let these kids fly.
So that's what you enjoyed about serving as governor. What did your family enjoy most about you being governor?
Sue would be Mackinac. And again, a lot of it is you do get special opportunities to go places and to see things and go to events that you wouldn't otherwise get or would be more challenging and difficult. The other one is it's always interesting. People always talk about how we have detail. And they're wonderful people. They're part of an extended family. They're extremely professional. They do a great job, but they're in our lives each and every day. And so it's great. I've seen them, they've seen Kelsey grow up and Zach grow up. And it's like, that's something really cool. They did tell me, though, that they may not ride in a vehicle with me until I go back to driver's ed, though. They made that quite clear. They'll go with Sue, but they assume I'm dangerous for some reason.
So now, I was probably with you the last time you drove a car, and that was in Japan. We were doing
And
that.
you were speeding.
Hydrogen car. Yes. Well, Steve Arwood and I were trying to figure out how fast we could go around the track.
Yeah.
You took a different approach, let's say, to speed. When is the last time you've driven a car?
Is
that it?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, you should go back to training. These freeways are cutthroat. So let me ask you this. Your take on public service, which is one that I admire, one that I grew up with, let's just call it rare. Do you see anybody else in the country doing what you're doing, approaching public service the way you have approached public service? The relentless positive action, the not criticizing anybody, just the kind of just hammering away in a positive manner to get something done.
Yeah, I would give you what I'd say there are 2 or 3 illustrations, because I'm not alone. I think I'm probably at the more extreme of promoting it. But as a practical matter, one of the things I've enjoyed are a number of fellow governors. Because governors are in a unique situation where we're all sort of chief executives of our states. And what I found is it's not a Democratic-Republican thing. We help one another and we talk. And there are some great people out doing good things. So I think that's a great illustration. I think the same thing is probably true of some mayors and city managers. When you're getting, as you get more local, it's more about service because you're interacting in the community more. The other part I want to give credit for that doesn't come up enough, and they're not elected, but a lot of public servants, a lot of the people that work for the state of Michigan, there are a lot of wonderful people that have made a commitment to do well. A great illustration is we did something on the vocational village today. I had Heidi Washington, the department director. She had spent her career with the Department of Corrections. She is doing absolutely amazing thing. She's got to be one of the finest illustrations of public service I know of. And there's a lot of people like that don't get enough thank yous from us. People tend to stereotype them in a negative context, but these are good, well-intentioned people.
As someone who spent a lot of time in the federal government, I would echo that. They're unsung heroes. So when you got elected in 2010, it was obviously a unique moment in our nation and in our state's history. Financial crisis was, we weren't out of that yet. This state, as you said, had a lost decade. We were basically a half day behind with our hair on fire. And we elect a self-described nerd to the highest office in the land. If you were running today, do you think you'd get elected in today's political environment?
I think it would be hard. Because again, most people would be in attack mode. And it would be harder to come out. I mean, one of the reasons I think I got elected was we were in a crisis. And this is again, that's why I don't mean to dwell on this thing, but one of my greatest fears is when you're in crisis, you tend to rally. Our country can rally, other people rally, we rally as a state. But when things are going pretty good, that's when you start getting people to sort of say, well, I don't need to make sure I'm working as well with everybody else. There's something I want, and now's my time to make my pitch to say, I better get it. Those are scary things, folks. And so we need to, again, not be complacent, content, or feel entitled.
So here's another personal question. What's with the uniform?
Yeah.
No, I mean, seriously, how many blue tick blazers and French blue shirts do you own?
Yeah.
I mean, Governor, I have seen Amish people with more variation in their wardrobe than you. I mean, I once got on a plane with you and you're sitting there in a suit and I walked right by you, I had no idea who you were.
Yeah, well, there are 2 pieces to the story, and I'll try to be brief. The first part, the no-tie part, came about when I came back in 1997. I came back, and I'd come back from Gateway, and so we were trying to really get the tech community going and started in Michigan. We had an event in Ann Arbor where we called really the whole tech community, all 100 of us together. And I'm not sure how it happened, but they asked me to be the facilitator, to actually run this thing. And it's like, okay, so you picked a guy from out of state that just came back into the state to do this. I don't get it, but I'll try. So I put on a suit because I had no idea. I hadn't even talked to most of these people yet. So I go into this meeting room in Ann Arbor. There were, let's see, it would be, I can get corrected here. I got a couple of people in the back that were there. There were 97 people in suits. There were 2 women and a guy in a Dexter High sweatshirt. And I looked at this room and I go, this is nuts. I said, we got to break out. We're in a rut here. There's no innovation here. There's no thoughtfulness. And at the first break, I said, I'm taking off my tie and I'm done. I said, I'm going to start wearing a tie again when everyone stops wearing a tie. Because that's the point about continuous improvement and innovation. That's half the story. The other half of the story, and you'll like this one, I believe, is I tend to get up earlier than Sue. And I know I would screw up, and I would be criticized if I did too much variation because I would need Garanimals to make sure I did my outfits right. So the honest answer is, I know if I get on dark pants, blue shirt, and some kind of thing, I'm in the reasonable range. And I'm probably okay.
I completely get the Garanimals thing. But Sue, I do hope you will take him shopping after you guys are done. So now, you have obviously given the answer very publicly about, or specifically, you haven't given the answers about what you're going to do afterwards. So I'm going to ask you a slightly different question. It is January of next year. You have just handed over the keys to the state to your successor. You go home, Sue's there. What's the first thing you guys want to do?
Whatever she says. And by the way, she had no idea the slide was there. So I'm glad I got witnesses that she was laughing.
Well,
No.
she's in public now.
So the funny story, so we did have some friends over in Ann Arbor, and so I decided to ham it up one time a little bit about what would happen when we're done. And so I talked about how I was going to be home every day. I'd be there for lunch. We could go to lunch every day. I could get up and make her breakfast because I get up before. I'd do this, I'd do that. She let me go for like a minute and a half, and all of a sudden she goes, whoa, whoa, whoa. You're going to have to get out. So I'm sure we'll go through some cycle there. I'm just not sure how long before the woes start coming, and I'm told to. So, last question. You've obviously made an endorsement in the upcoming governor's race, but we know you're going to be turning over the keys to somebody. What are the top 3 things that you want Michigan's next governor to know or to do? I would say, just like I did in the talk to some degree, is don't get caught up in this mode of not invented here. We've got an awesome foundation. Somebody was talking to me about some of the other plans, and I'm not going to get into specifics, but the point is, okay, you want to dramatically change some entire system in our state after we've created 540,000 jobs. We're #1 in the Great Lakes states. We're #6 in the nation. And do you think you're going to do a dramatic change that's going to make that better? If you honestly believe that, you should talk about doing it. But if you're simply going to do it because you want to show you're now in charge and you have the keys, if you can't do better than that, why wouldn't you just build on that? Those are the kind of issues we need people thinking about. The other one is again, the RPA thing. Don't go out and call somebody else something. Don't go out and pick a fight with anyone. One of the things I'm proud of to show how well I believe I've tried to live RPA is we had President Obama, a Democratic president. We have President Trump, a Republican president. I've treated them both with respect because you didn't hire me to argue with another level of government. You hired me to partner with them to make your life better with both the federal government, and Mike Duggan's been a good partner. So again, and a number of other mayors and local officials. So do that. The last thing is never forget what an honor it is and what a responsibility it is to say you can profoundly, positively impact people's lives. And that is something truly incredible. That's the part I'll miss the most about this job. I'm not going away. I hope to do some incredible things still in my life. But they won't be in a situation where you can say, by what you're working on, can impact the 10 million people in the states you grew up in and love. Hopefully it can affect, some lives in a very positive way. So the last thing is don't get caught up in politics. This is not rocket science. And the other thing besides civility, the lesson I'd give people is start with common sense. Too often people in the political world let politics dominate common sense. Common sense should be your guidepost to life. And when a lot of people say, aren't you worried something's going to get messed up? And it's like theoretically either the governor or the legislature could change things and mess up this great foundation. I said, I hope before they get political, they just apply common sense to what we're doing, because I believe we're doing common sense things. And as times change, as circumstances change, make it better by applying common sense again.
So, Governor, our time is coming to an end, and at the risk of being just a little sappy and a little emotional, on behalf of, I think, everyone here, and I think, frankly, the entire state, I want to thank you, I want to thank your family for an incredible run of public service. Just the integrity, the way you conducted yourself, the way your family conducted themselves, the way you just kept us positive, and just the incredible success that this state has achieved. So much due to your leadership. I just want to say thank you. We are so fortunate. We're going to miss you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Governor of the state of Michigan.
Thanks,